Hello, I'm Nadia Al-Samri with Diabetes Health TV. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to speak to John Sheridan, the President and CEO of Tandem Diabetes, the makers of the t:slim X2 insulin pump and IQ technology, which is really interesting. So stay tuned. Before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the bell icon to be notified of our next video. Thank you for joining us, John.
Thanks, Nadia. It's great to be here today to talk to you. I'm looking forward to it.
So I've been following Tandem since 2006. And when did they first start shipping their pump? And if you could give us the history of the insulin pump.
Yeah, sure. Well, you're right. We actually started developing it in the 2006, 2007 timeframe with a very small team that has evolved. And then we actually started to ship the pump in late 2012. And our pump is the t:slim, and it's very novel in that we have, I think our primary design concept is what we would call user-centric design, where the team has focused on developing products that are simple, intuitive, and very easy to use, very much like the consumer devices that you work with today. So this is a very novel approach. And some of the features that have come along with the pump, it has a touch screen, it's rechargeable, it's actually updatable. You can have software updates that come to the pump as we make new generations of software available to the people who actually use our system. So it's got a lot of very novel elements to it, and it's done a great job in the market.
And the design is really beautiful. I mean, it's just looking at it, it's color coded, it's small, it's 38% smaller than other insulin pumps. I know that also you could submerge it under like
That's
3
right.
feet of water for 30 minutes. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it's great that you can update it online because as you know, in the past with insulin pumps, you couldn't really do that. So this is so
Yeah.
someone can just do it through Bluetooth.
In the past, you actually had to get another pump, and that's typically what people had done. And
Hmm.
for us, we basically do it through a connection to your computer. Ultimately, it'll be done wirelessly through a cell phone, but right now you just connect to your computer and you download the software into your computer and then onto the pump. It's a very simple process. And as I said, we now, as we continue to develop improvements to the product technology, we can make those improvements available real time to our customer base. And so that's a big enhancement because we are continuously working to develop the software and improve the software that's on the system.
Right. And how long between like the time that you developed the pump when you launched it and then you added the IQ technology? Because that's really fascinating and so helpful for so many people.
That's right. So ControlIQ was introduced in 2020, in the very beginning of 2020. And it's actually the second algorithm that we've had on the system. Basal-IQ was our first pump with an algorithm that was introduced in 2018. And it was an algorithm we developed internally, and it had a Dexcom sensor on it. And Basal-IQ was a simple algorithm that just prevented hypoglycemia. ControlIQ is different. We partnered with UVA and TypeZero, and with them, we implemented a technology that they had been working on for years. And I would say it was probably the most advanced algorithm that was available at that point in time. And so that partnership does accelerate the sort of the capability of this system.
And
And
the
so
companies,
we
let
went
me ask you,
through
the
clinical
companies
trials.
that
We
you,
also
sorry, John, I mean to interrupt, but I was just curious, the companies that you mentioned, most of us aren't familiar with. Are they pump companies? Are they software companies that knew they were developing something and hoping to partner with a company like you?
Yeah, it turns out that TypeZero was a spin out from UVA. And many of the people who had worked on the algorithm in the university setting had left and joined this company. And the intent was to spin it out to other organizations that were looking to take advantage of the technology that they had developed there. So it was a great partner. They subsequently have been acquired by Dexcom. And so we continue to work with TypeZero through Dexcom. And we've got a very strong relationship with both companies.
So how does that work? Does Tandem own the technology or Dexcom, or is it a collaboration between both companies that own the
I
technology?
mean, we license the technology, and so we have access to it forever. And sort of subsequent improvements to the technology are things that we collaborate with TypeZero and with Dexcom on it. Although in the past couple of years, I mean, the reason we actually worked with TypeZero to begin with was we did not have our own algorithm development organization in-house. And so this was the fastest way for us to get the technology to market. Subsequent to that, we have now added a team, and we've got a very strong team of developers who are continuously looking at the next generation algorithm features and enhancements that we plan to make, as we said a moment ago, available through our Tandem device updater.
And so let's talk about the technology. It's really unique. It's predictive for low blood sugar, high blood sugar. It can automatically correct boluses. So tell us more about the technology for people and what the
Sure.
benefit is to them, especially parents.
Right. So basically what the system does, you have a sensor from Dexcom that's looking at your blood sugar levels every 5 minutes. And that information is coming to the pump, and the pump feeds it into the algorithm. And so the algorithm takes the data from the sensor, it looks out 30 minutes, and it makes a decision on whether you're going to be going high or low, and if you're going to be going high quickly or low quickly. And based on that information, it will either attenuate or suspend your insulin if it shows you're going to go low. And if you're going to go high, it'll give you additional insulin. And if it suspects you're going to go quite high, it'll actually give you an automated correction bolus.
And how does it determine
So
that? Is that within a certain, like, say you eat, you put in your carbs, and it's like within a 30-minute period? How does that, what data is it using to predict the
it's
correction?
using the sensor data,
Hmm.
and it uses like 4 or 5 points of sensor data, and then it takes that and it extrapolates it out in time. And
I
the
see.
algorithm then, based on the specific characteristics of the data it looks, makes the decision to basically either suspend, attenuate, or give you additional insulin. And I can tell you that there's ranges within the system where it has targeted ranges, and inside those ranges, it may not do anything. But if it suggests you're going to go high, it will give you additional insulin. Obviously, if you're going to go low, it'll attenuate insulin.
And
And what we
question, I'm sorry, question around the range. Who decides that? Is that something you decide with your healthcare professional? Does it come with a standard range like 70 to 180, or how does that work?
it was determined initially by UVA and TypeZero,
Okay.
and so it's a fixed range today, and I think it's 110 to 140. If you're operating it within that range, the system basically just lets you continue to operate, gives you basal insulin, but it doesn't do anything specific. If it
So it
predicts you're
doesn't
going to be,
correct is what you mean, right?
it
So if
doesn't
you're
correct
within
at
that
all.
range, it won't
That's right,
reduce or increase.
right.
Okay.
But if it shows you going outside that range, then it does take action. And we ran a number of clinical studies. We had a very large and important pivotal study that was run. And what we saw that when people used ControlIQ, they saw an immediate improvement in their time in range. Time in range measured between 70 and 180
Hmm.
deciliters
Milligrams
per
per.
milligrams per deciliter. So there
Yes.
was a substantial improvement, and we saw that they were in range then in the mid 70s. 70% of the time they were within that range.
Mm.
We've been on the market now for 18 months, and we have over 150,000 people who are using ControlIQ.
Yeah, so
And
you
what
have a
we're
lot
seeing
of
is that
data
if
in
you,
mind,
yeah,
right?
we have tons and tons of data.
Hmm.
But people who are using it today in the real world are seeing time in range in the 80s and 90% because they're carefully managing their
Wow.
bolus. And I think that's fantastic. And that's why I think people describe this technology as life-changing.
Oh, absolutely. And then so let's say that you're outside of the 180 range and your blood sugars are 250. So then the technology will bolus whatever amount you need, but I think it takes into account your carbs, right? Because the pump, you can put in the carbs that you've digested, right?
Right. It
But
takes into
is
account
that
your
is
carbs,
that a
it takes into account,
component, or I'm sorry, is that a component, or is that like a separate? They're two things happening in tandem, or is it?
they're all integrated into the system. And
Okay.
so you for if you decide to eat a meal, you still have to bolus using this system. And so that's comprehended in the amount of insulin you have on board already, and you just basically where your blood sugars are at that point in time. So you still have to bolus for meals. But if you haven't eaten and you are going high, the system will adjust by giving you an automated correction bolus, which is a very important feature. And
Right.
it really does provide that improved control.
Mhm. And what would you say to the people that are concerned about having a medical device that would deliver to them without them initiating that process? What kind of safeguards are built into the pump and the delivery?
Yeah, I think one of the most important parts of the system is a safety system that's developed, and every decision that's made is first checked against this safety system, it's a part of the algorithm. And I think the people at UVA and TypeZero spend a great deal of time to make that as effective as possible. And we really do see no hypoglycemia when people use the system today. I mean, if we, as I said, we have in the
Well,
clinical
that's
studies, we
everybody's
see
biggest fear. I mean, that's a huge
exactly.
thing. Yeah, sorry, I
So,
just
I
had
mean,
to.
hypoglycemia has essentially gone away. And today we're the improvements that we're looking at going forward are trying to reduce the amount of hyperglycemia. And this is just a matter of simplification of the bolus workflow, being a little bit more aggressive in certain elements of the algorithm's design. And we have confidence that we can get it so that everybody experiences time and ranges in the 80s and close to 90%
And
points.
I'm assuming that the pump is for children as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. Today, it's indicated down to 6 years old and 6 years and older.
Oh,
And
great.
we are actually in the middle of clinical studies as we speak with Stanford, UVA, and University of Colorado to get the indication lowered to 2 years and up. So we're excited about that. It's a smaller population, of course, but it's a very important population that needs access to this technology. So we're very excited about getting that to market here as quickly as possible.
And insurance covers it for type ones for sure. What about type
Right.
twos?
You know,
If they want to
there's
use it?
increasingly, when you look at the commercial payer organizations, they cover it. I think Medicare is still kind of on the verge, and I think they're making progress there. But the commercial payer organizations do cover it, and we have between 5 and 10% of the people who use Control-IQ today have type 2.
Oh, that's great. God, that's got to be so
Yeah, and they see
helpful.
amazing benefits as well.
And I would imagine that all trickles down into numbers for whoever's handling finance and paying for devices and diabetes supplies.
Well, the beauty is
Yeah.
we know we're substantially reducing hospitalizations
Which is
by
huge.
using this technology.
Hmm.
And so when you look at the cost of this exorbitant cost of diabetes to our healthcare system, the majority of that is unexpected hospitalizations. And so by doing this, we are reducing the healthcare costs and providing superior therapy to people living with diabetes. And so there's a benefit for all organizations and all the
Right.
people who are affected by this
And the
very
user
difficult.
who's somewhat traumatized when they have to go into ER.
Yeah,
That's always a
user as well as their
emotional.
family, everybody sees a
Right.
very positive benefit from interacting with Control-IQ.
Great. So what do you see in the horizon? What's the next step for the T-Slim X2 insulin pump and the IQ technology? I mean, is one of the things would be to have like a chamber for glucose, so then it corrects if you get below. Although you did say that people don't get blood sugar, so that may not be something that people need when they're on your system. What's
Well,
the
I
future
think
look like?
we really think we've eliminated, I mean, to the greatest extent, hypoglycemia when people use the system. And I think that when you look at where we're going forward, we are looking at miniaturization of the pump. First of all, we're going to go to a smaller, it's almost half the size of the T-Slim. Our internal name is T-Sport, and we're working on that. And that'll be our next generation technology. And internally, we're continuing to work on miniaturization, potentially using concentrated insulins. There's a lot of activity we got going on. It's more in the research phase, but a lot of activity there. And there's still room for improvement with our current algorithm. And
Mhm.
so we definitely, as I mentioned, we have a team of people that are focused on that. We're going to be doing clinical studies here in the near future to evaluate some of the changes that we've made to the system to prove out that, in fact, these changes are effective and do reduce the hyperglycemia I mentioned that we're just, like I think most pump companies today that have AID systems, hyperglycemia is what we're working to improve. And that's where our focus is. I will say Tandem started, when back in the 2007, 2008 timeframe, focused on dual hormone pumps. That's why the name is Tandem. And so it was going to be insulin and glucagon.
Oh, interesting.
And I think that we used to work with Beta Bionics, who's another company that's looking at dual hormone systems. They used our pumps in their early clinical studies. I think that it's when you look at where it's all going today, there's complexity that's introduced when you have a second hormone. You have to have a second infusion set. Obviously, there's the cost of the second hormone, and we think that with insulin, that we can get time and ranges up to a point in time where it's diminishing returns to add that extra cost to the system. but it's still to be determined. I mean, I feel pretty confident that we're going to be able to get our time and ranges up into the 80s and possibly even into the 90s over time. And we're going to continuously work to improve the experience that people have with our system so that it's convenient, it's easy, and it's just not, again, it reduces the burden of diabetes. And we'll have to see how successful Beta Bionics are when it comes to introducing their dual hormone system, which is something that's probably a few years out. But we'll ultimately see clinical data, and we can determine at that point in time whether subsequent changes are necessary to the strategy that we've got in mind at this point.
Well, that sounds very interesting for consumers, for patients that are interested in insulin pump. And it's really nice to know also that companies are always evolving and thinking ahead of the consumer in terms of, because you probably see more data. Most people are self-centered in terms of that they're aware of their diabetes care. But when you have a company that's looking at a broader picture, it's great because you can already identify patterns that individuals haven't identified yet, and you can start working on those.
That's
So
very
that
true. I mean, we do have a tremendous amount of data. We have over 25 million patient days of data for people who have been on Control-IQ, and that's just a tremendous amount of information that we're able to distill and understand how people interact with the system. And it gives us great direction for the improvements that we're looking at making here in the near future. And I would say that the most important area that we're focused on today really it's the patient experience. We want the experience that the people have using our pumps or interacting with our organization, our company, to be extremely positive, a very convenient and positive experience. And so, that's why user-centric design is so important. We're looking at data systems that will basically be a lot like the consumer-oriented systems that people have when you purchase supplies or interact with our customer support organizations, portals, and things like that. So, we're building out a digital platform that provides data-driven products and services that's really going to help also improve the experience that people have when they interact with Tandem.
sounds very interesting. Well, thank you for joining us today.
All right, Nadia, it was great talking to you. Thank you very much.
I hope this interview has been illuminating to you, offering you another solution to an insulin delivery device system. If you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the icon to be notified of our next video. Until we meet again.